I'm gonna have you test this in just a second. I'm gonna have you test this in just a second. Okay, Josh, let me know if that shows up on the live feed.
Wait, what shows up? Did you send that thing via Angela Wilhelm?
No. All I did is I just made the meeting live.
Oh.
Yeah, we're live right now. Hey guys. What's up, Pete?
Not too much, Mike. How's it going?
Too much. Not too bad. Working on some stuff. Yeah, just make sure that's live on YouTube.
Oh. I thought you meant on. Okay.
Christy, are you there?
In to the
I'm in.
account?
Yeah, don't sign in as that one. Okay. Christy? Hi, are you guys out of exec session already? No?
No, I'm putting the program on my tablet so I'm in both.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks. Who's Craig Orbis? Is he on our list?
He's a food service director from Watertown helping me with a CEP presentation.
Okay, thanks. I'll let him in.
You have chat enabled, by the way.
I do?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm in it. I can.
Oh, that's usually set though.
Oh, okay. But yes, you are live. Audio is coming through, but I have you muted for now.
You mean you have me muted? Huh?
I have my audio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Dude, you're like proud of me. I know. Total dick like that. It might roll down that hill.
What's up, Ange?
Hi.
They're still in executive
Go
session.
over here in the meeting zone.
What's that?
Was someone just talking?
I think Amy was. There. I just muted it. I just muted them all.
How's it going?
So far, so good. Making accounts.
My lighting is bad.
It is.
Yep, it seems dark in my. Bam. Nothing like being on the spotlight.
We got a couple more joining us, guys. They're still in exec session right now.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
All right. Hello.
Okay, it looks like we're getting close to getting everybody. All right, well, let's kick off the meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Jumping right in, we'll start with we got to have a public hearing for our student code of conduct. It's policy 7310. It's to deal with some of the COVID safety initiatives and we need to take care of. So Pat, I don't know if you want to jump in and talk about that a little bit before.
Yeah, I will jump in on that. Mike, are you ready to make me the host here for a bit?
Sure, no problem.
Okay.
Okay, Pat.
Okay. All right. Share my screen.
What? I know. Bring me your controller.
Where did that go? Oh, there we go. Okay, so we're going to go out of there and go back here. Okay, so you can see my screen. This is our policy 7310. It's our student code of conduct. Anytime there's a change to the code of conduct, we need to hold a public hearing before the board takes action on it. I'll just scroll down to the part that we've submitted here in regard to COVID. Here we go. All right. So we've added this piece to the section on prohibited conduct as it relates to the coronavirus. And we've talked about this before with the board, and the board was interested in seeing that we change the code of conduct to kind of put a exclamation point on the idea that as we're coming back to school, we need to follow the Department of Health guidelines. And those guidelines include things such as mask wearing and social distancing. And so we have the language here that in order to maintain this highest level of safety for our students and staff, additional expectations will be required for student conduct. Per the guidance of the Department of Health, Messina Central School District students will be expected to follow the procedures for temperature scanning upon entering the school building. As I mentioned before, we will have a pre-scanning by the parents before the children come to school, but then we will have temperature scanners in our school buildings, and they'll be led through those scanners social distance, that they'll follow those procedures appropriately, that they'll wear the approved face coverings over their nose and mouth when indoors, and whenever outdoors on campus when physical distancing of 6 feet or more is not possible. They'll be required on buses and at school-sponsored events. Exemptions may be provided as authorized by administration for those who have medical certification indicating a health risk for wearing face coverings. They'll utilize the 6-foot social distancing. We ask to wash their hands appropriately, especially after using the restroom, coughing or sneezing. Cover their mouth and nose with tissue when coughing or sneezing or inside the elbow. Throw the tissues out in the trash can. They will not cough, sneeze, or expel any form of bodily fluids on another student or staff member. They won't purposely, number 2 here, interfere with the usage of somebody else's PPE like a mask or face shield. They won't remove their PPE mask or covering with the intention of ejecting fluids on other students or staff members. They won't intentionally encroach on another person's social distance perimeter. They won't display PPE equipment that contains profane, abuse, or disruptive materials. Failure to wear appropriate PPE shall be considered dress code violation, and discipline shall be assigned in accordance with the guidelines in this document. And students who are repeat offenders or refuse to wear a mask may be subject to removal for remote learning. So we tried to cover what we felt was all the bases on this. Any questions from the board, first of all?
So as Pat said, this is, it's a first reading today and our recommended actions. And then our following meeting in September would be where we would adopt it.
Okay. I hear somebody else? If anyone from the public who might
hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I had a quick question about inside the school. It's absolutely mandatory 100% of the time. Even if I'm 100 feet from someone or a student is 100 feet from another student, they've got to wear a face covering.
That's correct. The only times where they wouldn't
Okay.
be is when they're when they sit down to eat, or when they're in the classroom and the teacher gives them a break, gives them a mask break. Everybody can take their mask off for a few moments to take a break, and that will be up to the discretion of the teacher to do that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Pat,
Mike, we have a few people trying to get in the meeting. As the host, can you admit them?
I saw it coming up.
Yeah, it should be over on the right-hand side. A couple of guys from IBI are trying to get in right now.
Okay. Let's see. Let me get off the stop share and see if that comes up. Let me see, participants. You know, Mike, I don't see them coming in, trying to come in.
All right, I can, like Ed Bernhauer, I can resend him the link that I have.
Okay, why don't you do that? That'd be great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Yep.
So if anyone who's watching this, if you want to put a question in the chat, if you have any questions, we'll seek to answer those questions. Christy, did I hear you? Did you have a question?
I do have a question. Is there going to be a set number of mask breaks? Like, are they going to be able to say they should have one every hour or every 2 hours? Is there going to be a set amount that the kids are going to get?
I think that's we've had some conversations. I think that's not something that we're going to right away say that there's going to be X amount in an hour, because they're going to be in different, like high school, for example, different classes. But I think that's one that we're going to leave to the discretion of the teacher, and we're going to kind of see how it goes. This is kind of new territory for us, so we'll see where the comfort level is for people, but keeping them safe, but providing those breaks for them as needed.
Okay.
Mike, anything coming in the chat?
No, nothing at all, Pat.
Okay.
Any more discussion around student code of conduct changes? Okay, we'll move on to approval of the minutes. We got 3 meetings we've had in the recent past. I'll go ahead and, unless someone has a question about a specific one, we'll go ahead and make a motion to approve all 3 with July 9th, July 30th, and August 13th meetings. Have a motion to approve those, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor, show of hands, please. Thank you. I'm not aware of any board correspondence, so we'll go ahead with reports from board members. Kevin, I don't know how your connection is, but you want to go over your meeting from August 10th?
Yes, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, I'll try and keep it brief. There's a lot, actually. We had a very long meeting. We talked about the capital project financing. We're using up our $6 million capital reserve for the front end of this project, and we're working on a $12 million bond anticipation note to wrap up the rest of phase 1. There's still no tax impact at this point. As far as capital project phase 1, we're $10 million to kind of give a brief update. I know Pat's going to cover this. We're about $10 million under budget. The roofing is behind. We're working on a plan to catch up. The site work's on track. Kind of in a general overview. I know Pat and IBI will talk about the rest of that. Phase 2, we're going to submit at the end of September, and we discussed what to do with the $10 million. I asked the question, what if we don't spend it? That was kicked around a little bit. I had some concerns about the high school reconfiguration with regards to COVID. We talked about those things. And I asked a question about if we could add air conditioning throughout Messina throughout all of the buildings in the schools with that money. And I know they're working on to figure out if that 10 million could cover that and look into that. There was also some auditorium work discussion. There's some additional work had to be done in the auditorium. The capital outlay project, for 2020-21 was the fuel dispensers at the transportation building. I think they're working on that to get that submitted to SED. There was a donation for the John Story Trail that's been offered up, and it's to pave the John Story Trail or a portion of it. And we're kicking that around right now because to really sort out if that fits within our policies or what the long-term implications of that are with respect to our donation policies, and then even the maintenance for the school. and kind of looking into what's the better. I asked them to look into what's a better surface to walk or run on, a cinder surface or a paved surface. That's something else to consider. So we're going to ask the donor to come in and kind of talk everything out and see if we can just get some more information on everything and see where we're going to go. There was some deteriorated asbestos fittings discovered in the high school basement. They've got a quote to remove that. I'm not sure where that's at this point. And we're working on a salt storage space shared with the village of Messina. They're building a new salt shed, and what we're hoping is we can piggyback on their salt purchasing and control our salt costs by purchasing in bulk and through state contract and whatnot, and have a little bit better control over those costs for the winter conditions we have to deal with every year. There's the rest of the meeting was with regarding COVID and changes that have taken place within the facilities of the school. And I'm going to let Pat take that on when he gets to his portion of the meeting. So I hope you could hear all that.
We did.
Yeah, we hear very well. There was one thing that I'm not sure you mentioned. It's about the roofing. They're kind of late on roofing certain schools.
Yeah, I had that in there.
Okay.
Yep. I'm sure Pat will get into that when they talk about it, the rest of it too. So that's it.
Any questions for Kevin before we move on? All right, the one item I have under myself tonight is the advisory committees. I went ahead and drew them up this week. Sent the names to Angela. Hopefully she can find the template that we've used in the past, and we'll get that filled in and sent out to everybody. But really quickly, with the financial situation with COVID and with the big project, I didn't want to change our chairs, so I left all the chairs the same. But for audit and finance, we got Lauren as chair still, with Kevin and Robert on that. And I'm just talking on the board member side. Facilities, Kevin will remain chair with Dave Leclerc on that committee. Policy, Paul will still chair, and we'll have Amber and Jodell with him on that committee. And personnel, again, we added the negotiations portion to that committee. We really haven't utilized that committee very well in the past. So this, with the contracts all in discussion, we can keep them busy now. So it'll be personnel negotiations committee with Paul again, chair there, with Christy Baker. So that's our advisory committees for the coming year. So any questions on that or comments? Or if you have, concerns, you can always call me directly. So with no questions, I'll go ahead and send it over to Pat for administration reports.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen again. And we have Ed Bernhauer here from IBI, as well as Jim Francisconi from CNS, who are going to give us a briefing on where we are with the capital project. There. And so I think, Jim, are you starting first on phase one?
It looks like I am, judging by the slide.
Okay. You just tell me where you want me to put the slide.
If you want to just go right to the first main slide. So quick agenda here, and I apologize for being a latecomer, but I will try to get through this quickly and efficiently. We're going to go over a little bit on the master schedule. There is a budget report embedded in here, but Ed Bernhauer from IBI will give more detailed information on that on his presentation. There's a manpower report we're going to be just quickly glancing over to give people an idea of personnel, at different times of the month or days of the month of when we had peak progress, and then just some photos. Now, mind you, some of these photos that you're going to see are probably a week and a half old. So if anybody is walking around outside, you compare against what you'll see in these slides, there's been a lot of progress made, especially been a part of Paris. So if we can move to the next one. So for an update, we're trending on schedule for the project as a whole. As Kevin had mentioned earlier, one of our concerns is the roofing, and they've had manpower problems, rain delays. They've been working Saturdays and overtime. And they had made a commitment, while their contract had said that they would be completed with both schools by the middle of September. They had made a commitment to get Jefferson done by the end of the month. They're saying that they can meet that commitment. I'm not, we're reserving our caution on that one. Madison, they're projecting to be done at the end of this month, or the end of next month, apologies. Candidly, we're going to review their progress over the next week and a half to see if we're going to continue to have the same manpower woes. Is it going to be worth starting a roof and not having it done when we need to have it done? And it's something we're updating people on a daily basis. And tomorrow we'll have even more information from the roofers to see if it's worth going forward. The other issue, not as critical, were the metal panels. We had some incredible difficulties in getting color samples from the manufacturer. There's nothing about the metal panels that will prohibit the school from functioning properly. It's exterior work. They could be out of the way. They won't impede classrooms or egress in and out of the building, but it's one thing that's been delayed that we are more than likely just going to push off until the springtime so that it's done properly, rather than make the contractor put temporary measures in place while they're to keep everything at a good installing temperature, 40 degrees or above. So more detail on the schedule. The high school, obviously, there's no work, no major work going on at this time. There's, the canopy is in process, actually. It says to begin, but they're working on that. And I think they're going to be done with the canopy renovations end of this week, middle of next week. The J.W. Leary concrete stairs and retention system are installed. Sidewalks and curbs are in process right now. They're going to be starting binder here soon, getting pavement going. When you see the photos of Leary, you'll see, what they were just 2 weeks ago, less than 2 weeks ago, versus what it is now. Again, some incredible progress. Jefferson, they have soffits in the kindergarten wing being removed, and ceiling frame and tiles are going in currently. Madison, abatement is complete. Paris is working on installing the lighting right now. I got to read these slides as if we're further ahead. Nightingale Elementary, the curbing and sidewalks are complete. Deck and light and gate operators are being installed now. We've had a little bit of holdup on some site work on Leary. So you'll notice in the central administration building, the milling is complete and the curbing and sidewalk is being prepped. But because of some of the unforeseen conditions Paris found underground, it kind of held back their progress on Leary. So in an effort to get Leary done, we've pulled people off the cab and to make sure that the focus is on Leary. Obviously, transportation, no work slated for next summer. Overall cost, again, Ed will get into more details, but we are projecting at budget, actually under, but I don't want to steal Ed's thunder for this one. We do have a lot of scope changes, and there are some notable ones down below, but they're all being covered under the allowances that have already been allocated for this phase of the project. And I don't know how much money we'll be able to give back out of those unspent allowances for the next phase, but it's looking like we might be able to do so. So that's a good thing. Some of the noticeable changes there: entrance at J.W. Leary, just to kind of help with Ms. Powers and the resident there, and make that entrance a little bit more amicable for everybody. There was some logistical changes over at Nightingale and Leary with the dumpster pad layout, which was definitely a good spend of the monies. And then we had a lot of added pipe fitting abatement also at J.W. Leary. And the nice thing about that is even that added work from the abatement contractor, they just wrapped all that stuff into their schedule. They really performed quite well. I don't know how well you all can see this slide, but this is just a cash flow projection, monthly accruals for each, for this phase. And so the red line down below is kind of represents the monthly expenditure, while the bars represent the accrued costs all the way up through October 21st, or October 2021. We tried to include the soft costs on there as well. So you're seeing a combination of the construction costs as well as engineering and construction management fees. Again, this is just a guesstimate on our spend of what we think we're going to end up at each month. Next slide.
If they can't see it, Jim, all of this brown is site work, so you can see the cost, the cost going up with the site work. The yellow is the roofing.
Yep.
And the soft costs on top is most of our work in phase one.
Yep.
Okay.
And I mentioned AAC, the abatement contractor, doing well. Paris has done phenomenally well for us on schedule as well. They've been very proactive from the very beginning of the project. They have over communicated with us to try and make sure that we're all staying ahead of schedule, and they really are operating as like just another arm of the school to try and get everything done. They're very vested in this project, and it's for me personally, it's nice to see. It's hard to come by contractors who really are taking a personal stake in this project, and so it's made it very easy for us. Manpower report. So this is a graph in hours. And so you can see from June to July, the green line there, that's Paris. So you can see who got out of the gate swinging. And then once you hit the beginning of July, the rest of the contractors start to roll in. Part of what happens there is, the notice of award coming out in June. So you kind of have a stagnant month of paperwork, to get involved before people can order material and start working on their parts of the projects. Whereas Paris, there's not much paperwork involved when they start doing a demolition activities. That has to come first. So that's why you see their efforts at the very beginning of the job and continuing straight on through. AAC, which is the abatement contractor, they should be a vertical drop down actually a week after this. Any questions on manpower at all or no? Okay, we can go to the next slide. So these are some photos of J.W. Leary, and each photo is about a week apart, starting from the beginning of July into the end of July. And what you see in the upper left is the stormwater retention system that's actually underneath your parking lot. This allows the additional runoff created by the site work, and Ed, if you want to, if I speak out of turn, let me know. But this allows the extra runoff from the site to actually percolate into the ground, kind of like a leach system, before it even enters into the existing storm system. So the added pavement that creates all this extra runoff, what we're trying to do is reduce the amount of stormwater runoff going into the system. So you got quite a bit of busy work going on underground that nobody will see once it's all paved over.
Next one.
Yes, please. The roof, and they've got more than half of it done now, which is nice to see. But you could see that there's a myriad of roofing systems over at Jeffords, from original with a repair and a repair on top of that. So while we've had some issues with the roofers in terms of productivity, to fair to them, they run into all sorts of different type of roofing systems that you don't know until you start peeling it back, and sometimes it can be quite a bear to pull off. They've been improving on their manpower this week, and with a call with the vice president yesterday, today, and tomorrow morning to follow up, they're offering their personnel additional monies to travel from Syracuse and Albany and Rochester areas to get the required men that we think that they need up here. Next slide. So Zach Guest, who was our intern from Clarkson, Messina graduate, 2016 graduate, actually. He was able to get inside one of the abatement areas before they started going to work, and just gives you a good idea of just how much protection that has to go into place before they start doing any kind of demolition activities. It's the floor, the walls, and the ceilings. It's quite a bit of work that they do just before they actually start to do the actual demolition work. And just so you know, we haven't lost Zach completely. He's been a wonderful intern and co-op in addition to our team. And our hope is that once he graduates, after his senior year at Clarkson, that we're able to keep him on board with us. So you can see a little bit more here with Nightingale. If you could scroll down a little bit more, Pat. I don't know how much we could get all of those in. So from the top left to the bottom right, kind of shows you the progression 1 week at a time of how far along they've come. And this is the telling week. So when any of you go outside, you'll see even much more, progress. But from the beginning of July to now, just, envision the whole site being torn apart and put back together again. Kudos to Paris. And as I said before, a central admin building, it's kind of in a stagnant position right now. Collectively, we decided we'll focus our efforts on the school and then come back to the admin building to finish up the paving after the milling and the other remediation work. Any questions from anyone? Okay, Ed.
We'll move on to Ed.
Well, maybe before we move on, we talked about the roof at Madison, about possibly putting that off.
Yes.
Is that going to run into any issues if we do it in phase 2, as far as we're only allowed so much money to be spent at each site, right, in each phase, or something to that effect?
Well, this phase of the project, you go first, then I'll go.
Yeah, I'll grab that one. I think what you may be recalling is a discussion that we had regarding building aid and how much we can fit into our maximum cost allowance for aid. That was really in reference to the site work, because that's where we were bumping up against that maximum that the state education department sets. So really, when we're talking about roofing, we're in the other bucket of money, so to speak. So we have much more room to be flexible there.
Where it becomes an issue is logistics, because when we came up with our schedule, we wanted to do the roof where there wasn't site going on.
Right.
And so if we hold the roof off till next year, their access to the roof is going to be limited. But candidly, if that's the position that they put themselves in, then they're going to have to work within those constraints.
Okay.
So it's just the nature of the beast.
All right. Thanks, Ed, Bill. Thank you.
Okay, Ed, you want to talk about phase 2?
Absolutely. And I just wanted to take a second to thank everyone tonight for some time. As Jim said, we do have our challenges with the roofing with phase 1, but overall for the project, I know Jim and I were excited to talk with you tonight because we actually are in great shape. And we're kind of excited to present this information to you tonight. We know it's a busy time for you. Again, Jim and I are very excited, and the teams are excited at IBI and CNS. We're in unprecedented times here, guys. And really, with what's going on with the pandemic, it's very hard, as you know, of how is it going to affect construction industry and how is it going to affect progress on sites and material ordering and things such as that. So as we talk about the roofing challenges, and we're taking it very seriously, and it's a team effort across the board to make sure that we stay on top of that, let it be known that the project overall, we're just really happy with how things are turning out. And so that's what we're happy here to talk about tonight. First thing, I did want to update you on the schedule. We'll touch on the budget, and then we'll get into some of the scope changes for phase 2 based on budgetary knowledge that we have now. And in addition to that, I'll just give you a brief overview of the capital outlay. So let's jump to the next slide, Pat. So for our schedule update, we are on schedule as we had outlined during the referendum time. For phase 2, specifically, we're completing our design meetings this month. And then in September, we basically do our 75% review of the construction documents with the idea that by the end of September, we're sending our documents for phase 2 to State Education Department for their review. State Education Department review times are currently at 4 to 6 weeks. So we're anticipating they'll take October and November for review. And then after that point, we'll actually go into the public bid of the project. Can you scroll down a little bit more, Pat? And we're anticipating we'll use December for our public bid. So we should be well ahead of many of the bids that are happening for the 2021 construction season, hoping to get very aggressive pricing again on that. So, and then possibly construction, again, due to the magnitude of work, looking at construction during the summer of 2021 and 2022. Next slide. So part of our excitement and good news for this evening is that when we took a look at phase 1 during referendum time, we identified about $29 million worth of work that we thought would be potentially for phase 1. Currently, we took a look at it, and as you can see here, our estimate is that we're actually about $18.9 million for that work. That's based off of the actual contracts that we have in place now, which is about $15 million, along with the soft cost for phase 1, which is estimated at about $3 million. And even on top of that, we're being safe, and we're actually putting a contingency on that as well of $900,000. That all added up, as you can see, and if you scroll down a little bit more, Pat, we're well below that number, so that for our phase 2, our referendum budget was around just shy of 21 million. We have in excess of $30 million to spend for our phase 2. So this was, as I said, a combination of during the design, we did find out that there was some roofing work that did not need to be done since it was under roofing warranty and it was in good shape after our inspections. Also, too, we did find that there was some additional suspect asbestos materials that turned out to test out negative so that there was not asbestos in them. So we saved on some asbestos abatement. And then during the bid process, we were very fortunate to have very aggressive bids and have good bids come in during our public bidding of phase 1. So all in all, it had put us in really good shape so that, again, we have some additional funds that we can allocate to phase 2 for work. Now, as we jump down, one of the things I'm going to just kind of briefly go through next are some additional scope items that we brought forward. If everyone recalls, during referendum time, we made sure to meet with all of the administrators, all of the stakeholders of the district, all the faculty members, and really spend some time vetting out what would be their wish lists for their educational environments as a whole, and not really even looking at kind of the financial piece, but to really capture all of the needs for each of the buildings. We then created a priority list, and we took the top priorities of that kind of giant wish list to form our referendum amount. Well, now that we have these additional funds, we've actually delved back down into some of those priority 2 items and began moving those forward to advance some of those needs that we didn't think or we're not sure would make it into the first round of the project. So as I go through these 2, please keep in mind, Kevin did mention one other big item that you won't see on this list because we're just kind of vetting that out now, and that's providing district-wide air conditioning. And we're going to see, how that would take. But one of the things here in the high school, we're doing some extra door replacement. We're doing some other things at the auditorium. We do have some base scope in the auditorium, so we're expanding that a little bit to pick up some of the other needs. We're also at the junior high looking at door replacement for the exterior and interior, and then also making sure that we provide new air conditioning rooftop units for all the data closets. If we jump down to the elementary school slide, Pat, we're also taking a look at some additional suspended ceiling replacement in the interiors along with exterior door replacement. We're looking at taking some of the custodial areas and renovating those so that they're more accessible for some of the equipment. We're actually looking at an interior secure access parent drop-off at Jefferson that's actually going to match up with the new site work that's happening in phase 1. And then also too at Nightingale and Madison, there's a conference room right now that really doesn't have its own access as a building conference room, and you have to go through other spaces. So we're cleaning that up so that it now can be a building-wide conference room available to all of the faculty. Next slide. We are taking a look at some data rack renovations at the transportation building as well, so that, you know, again, so everyone knows we are looking at support buildings as well, not just the 5 main educational facilities, but we're also looking at what can we do to better the support areas in those types of environments. So then jumping down, now that, as we said before, this is all part of the capital improvements project up until this point. That capital improvements project was the referendum that was passed and the subsequent phase 1 and phase 2. Running alongside that, we also have our yearly capital outlay projects that are capped off at $100,000 to spend. And the district actually is able to get that aid reimbursement the following year on these particular projects, these annual projects. For this year's capital outlay project, we actually are doing kind of a part 2 where we're replacing the fuel dispensing system, including the dispensers and the head-end software at the transportation building at the fuel depot. If you'll recall, our capital outlay last year did underground work there and piping work to put in new lines and secure the new lines and have the safety systems in at the fuel station that were needed. This is kind of the part 2 of that for this year, is actually replacing that dispensing system, which has been outdated and no longer manufactured, and no longer supported. So we're bringing that all up to standards. Our current schedule for that is right now we've submitted to SED and we're waiting for their approval of our package, and it'll begin the technical review. The estimate for that is about 4 to 6 weeks, as I said, for our SED technical reviewers. And so that means probably at the end of September, early October, since it is a smaller project than our phase 2, we imagine that we could get out to public bid for that. The construction duration for this project is actually approximately only 1 week. So we are looking to schedule that during the year, you know, when works best for the district. We just have to make sure, like all capital outlay projects, it occurs within the fiscal cycle of the year. And so that for this particular project means it has to be completed by June of 2021. And then if we scroll down, Pat, this is just some example images of the new dispensers that will be utilized. With an existing picture of the fuel depot if someone hasn't had the chance to see it.
Okay.
So, any questions on our phase 2 or our capital outlay?
Thanks, Ed.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate the good news also on the budget. That's good. Very good.
Thanks, Ed and Jim. And I'm glad to hear that our local contractor, Paris, is doing us a good job. That's nice to hear. Thanks.
They really are. And they, to be honest, totally honest, I'm not trying to just, you know, make it everybody sound like it's, you know, rosy cozy, but we could use that attitude on some other projects. It'd be nice if they could be a little bit more contagious. So.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you all for having us. I quite appreciate it.
Have a good evening, everyone.
All right. You too. Pat, if you don't mind, just jump down to the CEP report. We have some guests here tonight, and you know, we needed to spend some time here on the capital project, but I don't want to leave them on too long. If you don't mind, we'll just come back to the reopening.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
So we have Craig Orvis is on tonight with us from Watertown. He's their food service director, and he's been working with us on looking at the community eligibility provision. We also have Peter Bertrand, our food service director as well. In a nutshell, as we've talked about before, the CEP or community eligibility provision would be our eligibility that all of our students would be able to receive free lunch. And so they're going to talk about that tonight. What you have here is a memo that Peter had written to us with his recommendations for this year. So Peter, you and Craig want to take that away, give us a brief summary on where we are with that application and what your recommendations would be for this year.
Are you there, Pete?
Here, Craig.
Okay. Tonight, Black, we received approval from Child Nutrition for the CEP program should we decide to move forward. If everybody's not sure what the program is, community eligibility program that is funded through the USDA provide free meals to all students. That would give us no charges. There would be no stigma for any students. It would just cover everybody. However, we would be reimbursed at 87% of all of the costs associated with that. Through the chart that's on the second page there, it shows that a maximum loss of possibly $452,000, which also is in contrast to what we would lose in the National School Lunch Program. That will also be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And I'll just jump in here a little bit, Pete. When we look at a community eligibility provision, I've worked with several districts to look at these numbers. In a normal year, which none of you on this screen that I can see even think we're in a normal year, we all in the school lunch business anticipate a loss due to the fact that all of us are only going to be having, most of us are going to be having about half of our students in on any given day. So when Pete is giving you that look at about 55% participation, it's about half of what you normally would bring in. On a given year with child nutrition, you would look for the revenue of what and compare the revenue between your community eligibility provision and the revenue you would take in the National School Lunch Program. Very briefly, National School Lunch Program, you have 3 eligibilities: free, reduced, and paid. We receive a higher amount of federal reimbursement for your free, a little bit less for your reduced, and of course, only about 42 cents from the federal government for our paid students. What CEP does, it takes that data and says for Messina, with your basic number, every meal that you serve, every 100 meals you serve, 87 of those you're going to get at that high free rate, and the other 13% you're going to get at the lower rate. So they take it and work it as a percentage, and it really comes off to be about an average right now of about $3.16 on this chart for every meal you would serve, again, at no cost to your parents. So I look at that minus 452,000, and And I'm in shock of that a little bit, because I don't believe our participation is going to go down as much as we think if we can get our parents to partake in our great program. And also, if you're providing meals for parents to pick up, that's where we could gain some of those numbers back. And I'll only talk a little bit about Watertown at this point. We anticipate, because we are a CEP school, we have been for currently almost 5 years, that stigma is gone, that when we offer these parents the 3-day meal or the 5-day meal, that is at no cost to them. They will make an effort to pick those meals up, so therefore generates the income that I need to help offset those costs. Again, looking at a CEP program, we only really have the data of looking at what income based on CEP or income based on National School Lunch Program, because our costs are, each district has their own costs. That's really where that boils down to. And on a normal year, you would see a growth of at least 5%, if not 10% of your average daily participation going up. Watertown, when we went to CEP, we currently are at about 25 to 30% increase in our breakfast. And we were jumping anywhere from 10 to 12% on lunch, because again, that stigma's gone. They don't pay to get on the bus. They don't pay to get the library book. And now they are eligible to come to school, and no one is asking them for money when they do walk in the door.
So Craig, what you're saying is that if we were at a CEP program in a normal year and we could get 10% growth, it's projected an estimate, looking at our data, we could be looking around a $39,000 profit.
And that's based on your income, Mr. Brady. So you would be taking in $40,000 more to help your program than you would if you were looking at the National School Lunch Program.
Right.
Yeah, it's just a caution that it's not profit. It's that much less of a loss potentially.
Right. That's a good point, Nick. This is only, right. We still are running at a loss. That would just be $40,000 less of a loss than we normally run at.
Some of the things when I am working with the school district is the things that I ask them to look at as well is your charges at the end of the school year, what your district may be taking from non-federal funds to pay back to the school lunch fund under our program that has to be part of that policy. So again, that to me would be an additional savings on the district that you're already paying towards that program. So that's something to look at from that standpoint as well.
So there you're talking about, Craig, the deficit when parents don't pay for their meals, for their children's meals, right? Okay.
Right.
And I believe that today's state ed meeting that they said we are still under the lunch shaming issue, so that the parents show up to get 5 days of meals and they don't have the money on them, we're supposed to let them charge that. Currently, one meal pack for 5 days for one student is at $25.25. If they show up to get 3 students meals for the week, that's $75. And I guess we're not supposed to make them pay.
And again, this upcoming school year, for all of our changes under the pandemic feeding, we were able under summer feeding rules to provide all those meals that we handed out right up until school starts at no charge to the parent. USDA has said that we have to now start running under the National School Lunch Program. So when the parents come, we will need to be able to document the student's name and that they're enrolled in your district. And then you would have to charge them accordingly to their free, reduced, or paid status. And one more thing, Mr. Brady, with CEP, as Pete just mentioned, we went ahead with the approval process because as you just got off with your advisors there, sometimes 4 to 6 weeks. SED takes us a little bit longer, so we received that approval. You certainly have the option to stay in the National School Lunch Program, but we wanted to take that a little bit of a step ahead just in case you chose to. We knew we were going to be close to that line. So that's why we went ahead with that CEP approval. And this approval is good for 4 school years. So once if you accept this, then this just rolls over, and every year you look at your numbers, and if unfortunately your poverty rate goes up, then your percentage of that 87% may be getting to 89%. Then that holds that solid for that year, but it never can go below what you're originally approved at.
So what would be the reason to not go forward with this?
The reason would be, Lauren, is that it's this line here. We need 10% growth in a normal year to actually not lose money by changing over to that program. We're still going to lose money in the food service program but we're going to lose, in this case, about 39,000, where we wouldn't, difference that we would have to put towards our deficit in the program. We're only going to have half our kids in the buildings under COVID. And so that's why I was saying 0% growth at 55% participation, because we aren't going to have our kids there. We don't know how many are going to show up to on Mondays to get the food packs. And as Peter was saying, we're going to have to, as Craig was saying, we can't give those food packs out and then get reimbursement for them, just give them out like we did before. We're going to have to ask questions, okay, and check off, okay, who are you? Do you get free lunch, or are you paid? And then they'll have to pay if they're not free or reduced lunch. So we could stand losing a lot of money if we were to go CEP this year. Craig, am I capturing that correctly?
You're capturing some of it correctly.
Okay.
With CEP, if you're looking at that loss, what you almost have to say is your participation, if you're looking at your participation to drop by, say, 50% this year, you would then have to look at taking your National School Lunch Program income and dropping that by 50%. So going to the CEP may generate you the same amount of income as your National School Lunch Program, depending upon your participation. And I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but if you took, say you took in $100,000 this month on your normal average daily participation, and that dropped 50%, you're only going to take in 50,000. Even under CEP, you may be taking in more income. Say you took in 120,000 with that growth, and it dropped, it's still going to drop 50%. So money-wise, you're looking at income-wise, you could be lower than you would be at National School Lunch. You could be about the same, but it's going to be the expense part of that as well. And I know Nick is there, and I'm a figures guy too as well. But some of the things that I look at with the CEP is there is that dollar figure, but it takes out that stigma. And on any other normal year, you may increase your participation. So if you anticipate losing 50%, if CEP was out there, you may have more families coming to pick up those 3 to 5 day meals, and even the kids coming to school at halftime, or they may participate more because they are not going to have to purchase those meals. So.
Hey, Craig, it's Nick. A side note on that, though, the model that spits out these numbers calculates in the drop in the regular system that we're currently using. So how can CEP produce the same money when the model that they put out for CEP is telling us it's going to be a dramatically higher loss?
And I can't answer that right off the top of my head, Nick. I'd have to look at the model. I know is out there. It really does depend upon your percentage rate. Again, the more percentage you have, the more income it's going to generate. I'd have to take a look at the model to make sure that we were in that same ballpark of that 50% participation rate, to make sure those numbers were there. I think you would still also need to look at what would be generated at a 50% loss in your national school lunch program. If you took those same numbers at 50% of your national school lunch program, that's where you would have to also do a little comparison.
All right.
Again, I think we're in an unprecedented year. In a normal year of the school districts I've had the opportunity to work with CEP, within 18 months to 24 months, they were above and beyond because of the increase in participation. They were above and beyond income more than we had anticipated. But again, gentlemen and ladies, I will tell you, we are in an unprecedented year.
So
can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
What's the deadline on the application, or how long is it valid, or when does it sunset for this application? Do we have time to continue to look at these numbers? And the reason I ask is it's probably odd coming from me, but given my typical stance on money, I really want to see if we can figure out how to make this, just really crunch these and figure it out. I think it's very important that if we can get, like I've said before, if we can get the kids in the door, even if we're bringing them in with food, I think it's very important. That helps get them there and helps get them what they need to get on with the school. Whether they're picking it up and doing it at home, or whether they're in the school building eating it. And there's going to be some other things besides numbers that we get back out of that kind of commitment.
I can answer that, Mr. Brady, if you would like me to, on the application part.
Yes, we've already, go ahead.
Right, so you already have been approved for the application. It would just be a matter of telling the state education department you're going to participate in the CEP program, or that you're not going to. A couple of things change. If you don't participate with the CEP, you would then have to put out your free and reduced letters. You would have to put out that income in the paper, which may have gone in already. There are a couple of things different with CEP. You're still going to ask your parents to fill out a income form for the household to drive Title I funds, which we won't get into this evening, but those Title I funds have never dropped in a CEP school. But you have some time if you choose to look at those numbers. I know that the commitment that Artie in the St. Lawrence Lewis Bosse's group has, we would put effort into that to work with Mr. Brady and Nick to work those numbers quickly if that's something that you decide to choose to do, Mr. Brady.
Well, Craig, I know we talked about in a normal year, it looks like this would be something that you would encourage because you've seen the growth, and plus having the idea of students not having to pay for their meals is great, and I think we all want to get there. Would you also recommend that in this year that we go CEP?
I would like to take that opportunity. I would like to take the opportunity maybe to look at and take a look of your revenue under the nutrition or the NSLP, National School Lunch Program, and take 50% of that income away and take it and run those numbers based on your figures that Pete could give me, and I could give you that. Personally and professionally under CEP, it just is a good community effort. I certainly don't want you to look at a $400,000 loss. You may be looking at a little bit greater loss, but what it does is it shores up on the community that this program is out there. We're taking full advantage of it. And you do have the opportunity to say, I'm going to go to the CEP this year. And then if it doesn't work out and it's a terrible loss, you have that opportunity to go back to the National School Lunch Program.
So does that mean that there would not be the opportunity to get into the CEP program in a future year where things are normal or more normal than they, certainly are now?
You can apply for CEP any school year that you would like to do that. As long as that number is above 40%, which is not going to drop down in any recent year that we have seen. And unfortunately, with the circumstances we have been under, our new direct certification matching program numbers coming out from state ed, which is which drives your directly certified students that automatically are certified under the SNAP program and certain instances with Medicaid. Those numbers, according to state ed on their website today, will be released at the very beginning of next week. So the numbers could be increasing as we speak.
Last year, Messina was a little over 40%, and this year we were at 52, a little over 52%.
So Pat, this is going to require board action, right? If we get on this?
Good question. Craig, did your board take action on this to go CEP?
They did vote to go CEP, but I would do some checking for you, but in reality, once the CEP, you signed the affirmation statement, Mr. Brady, that you would do this, and this, that once that is approved, you have that determination, although the board always loves to give their blessing, but your affirmation statement has said to them that we'd like to go ahead with this, and that if everything pans out, this is what we would do.
Yeah, it's a big commitment. I would want the boards
Correct.
to take action on it.
Correct.
But we're ready to start the school year. When do we have to take action on it? When can we say yes or no? The application has already been approved, just because we wanted to get it in to see if it's something that would work for us.
It's a matter of telling the state education department. Pete calls him and he emails his child nutrition representative and says, we are going to, Messina Central School will be participating in the CEP program for the school year 2021. Because again, it's already been approved at that stage.
Craig, you also said we could do mid-year though, right? Like it's not something we have to jump on for the start of the year. We could start in January or March if things were looking up.
We in Watertown did jump on mid-year. We did that when we started several years ago. There is that opportunity, yes.
So we
Hey,
could.
Pat, I have a question.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, so somebody had mentioned that people who have SNAP are already qualified for the free and reduced lunches, right?
Right.
So is that something that they have to still fill out the form to be included in, like to get the free and reduced lunch, or are they automatically, like, do we have a database where they're automatically the parents don't have to fill out the form, and do they know about this? Like, do all the people who get SNAP know about this? Because I know personally I work for SNAP, and we have a ton of people who are now getting SNAP because of the pandemic who haven't gotten it before and may not know that they qualify for the free and reduced lunches.
Well, I'll let Peter or Craig answer that, but I believe that's a direct certification, right, guys?
Correct.
Yes.
Go ahead, Pete.
When we open up, and if we're under National School Lunch Program, we will, before that happens, we'll do the direct certified matching program
Okay.
process. And all that takes all of our students at Messina School and puts them into NutriKids, and they will determine whether they're already free. So we'll get it to start the school year that shows how many free students we already have. That's when we send home applications to all the parents. They will fill them out. And then most of them will already know that they're free. So when they return those, that's when we start sending out letters that they've been approved or denied.
So
There
Peter,
is a
So if they
direct
don't fill out, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, there is a direct certification letter in the NutriKid program that when they do become directly certified, the food service department has that letter and mails to the parent that says, because the parent has the option to stay in that category. So once it becomes SNAP and or there are certain Medicaid students that also qualify. So Mr. Brady would get a letter stating that his son Johnny has been approved for school lunches. You don't need to do anything else, but if you would like your name removed from that program, they would have to sign it and send it back. Not many do, but they do have that option to opt out of it, but they would get a letter that they are directly certified through the program from your school district.
so to answer Christie's question, I think what she's saying, correct me if I'm wrong, Christie, is that if you already are part of SNAP, do you still have to fill out the application under the right now, whether we have CEP or not? Is that your question?
Right, just regardless, do they have to fill out that paperwork?
No, ma'am, they do not.
Okay. Okay, so like anybody new who's brand new to SNAP, they're automatically going to be enrolled without. Okay. Okay.
So they may fill out a form and send it in to Pete. Pete's going to bring it up on his NutriKid. It's already going to say directly certified, and that letter that says they were directly certified, most likely at that time, probably already got mailed back to the parent.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Any other question? I guess maybe we, in light of that, I thought we were moving in one direction, but in light of that, then maybe we take a closer look at this. If you're saying we can join on, I knew we could join on mid-year, but we could maybe get the school year started, take a closer look at those numbers, Craig, that you talked about with our current national school lunch program and what we would lose there, and then make a recommendation to the board.
I certainly can, and I'll speak for Artie, even though he might pop me on the head tomorrow morning. We can look at this as early as Monday or at the very latest Tuesday to work at those numbers, and we can get those to you, Mr. Brady, without a problem.
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, it sounds like something we would do in a normal year. I mean, I really like to pull that lever as well, but with the unusualness of this start of the year and half the kids in school at a time, it's we need to look at those numbers before we be ready to jump in. Yeah, I believe. My 2 cents.
Completely understand. Completely.
Okay. Any other questions for Craig or Pete? We really appreciate your time.
Not a problem. We'll be talking to you very soon, Mr. Brady.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Craig.
Yep.
Okay, I think we'll move on to Jan. I know you're still on there, and Stephanie for the IB textbooks. Jan, you want to just give us an overview of what you're looking for here?
Sure, absolutely. So the textbook that I currently use is 6 years old, and the subscription that we have to the e-text and to the website that comes along with the text that I currently use is set to expire, or actually has expired now. And so also the IB curriculum has been updated. They update them every 5 to 7 years. And so some of the new topics that are in the newer curriculum are not covered well in the current text that I use. I also don't have enough texts. I have about 30, I think, in the classroom, and we have 57 students signed up for IB psychology for this coming fall. So what I'm looking for is approval for a new text that is very similar to the one that I use now. And it's also one that's been approved by the psychology department chair at SUNY Potsdam. We offer one of the courses that I teach through the college and high school program that SUNY Potsdam offers, so the students can get 3 transferable college credits through there, and they've approved that particular text that I'm interested in. And they also use, some of the faculty members also use the same site that comes along with this particular text. The site comes with just amazing resources. It's got things that I can assign as far as I can make my own formative assessments, summative assessments. There's videos, there are simulations that students can take part in, so they can actually be a participant in a psych experiment. So the resources are just unbelievable. And, you know, we're heading into a time when I'm going to need as many resources as possible to tap into so that students can be assigned meaningful work when they are not in front of me.
And you looked at 3 different programs?
Yes.
Textbooks?
Yep,
And we have that there as well. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Stephanie, anything from you on the psychology?
No, I 100% support Jan's decision in the textbook that she's looking at, as well as her current text is no longer, it's void. It does not have all of the content that she needs to be teaching for her courses. Plus, when she got the approval that it would also provide those SUNY Potsdam credits, it just seemed like the best match for our IB psychology class.
All right. Per Board of Education Policy 8340, we bring the textbooks forward to the board for their review. We require that the instructor to look at 3 different textbooks and collaborate also here with the Director of Curriculum. And so looks like you guys have done your homework and appreciate that.
So Jan, did this text stand out between the 3? Was it pretty obvious for you?
Oh, it was, yes, very obvious. The textbooks that, this textbook is written at a level that is perfect. The reading level is absolutely on point. It's at a high enough level where it really challenges the students, but it's not so difficult that they become overwhelmed when they're reading it. And so that's what really stood out for me. It's kind of an updated version of the one that I already use. And I've had some really great success with the one that I use now.
Excellent. I really like that Potsdam State's also using.
Yeah, that's very much a selling point for me too. As soon as I was talking with the head of the psychology department there, and she said, "Oh yes, we use my psych lab too as well." Like there's several faculty members there that use the same exact software website that comes along with the text, and that was really appealing to me as well.
Thanks, Jan. Thanks, Steph.
All right. Thank you, guys. All right, our next one is also related to curriculum, and that's Activity Learns. And we have Mike Violi, who's the department chair for the high school English department, although I know he's been in collaboration with April Charleston at junior high, Melissa Power at 6th grade, with Stephanie on a 6 through 12 ELA curriculum. So they're pretty excited to talk to the board about this tonight. Mike, I apologize for your not letting you into the room, but it came just up as Michael and wasn't sure if I was getting zoomed on, but
I go by a lot. I go by a lot of names, Pat.
Didn't have your last name, so I didn't know who it was.
Okay.
But
We'll figure that out.
but I let you in, so here you are.
Thank you.
All right.
Guys, first of all, thanks for allowing me, and it's a chance for us to try to improve our ELA instruction in the district. And I know you guys have a packed schedule, and I sat in on some of the conversation here. I know you guys are very busy, but thanks for making the time. As I told Mr. Brady and Mrs. Allen the other day, before you look at anything like this, you have to think of rationale, of course. And the rationale kind of came together organically as we were separating from the physical building last year. My department was scrambling to find ways to be able to get material to students. We did set up distribution at the school, but we needed more materials beyond that. And my teachers are constantly looking at the technology to see where we can use it and use it effectively. And so a few of the teachers found Actively Learn and started to initiate some work through them on a trial basis. They had some access, but limited access. I believe they had a 30-day trial, and I'm not so sure how Abby St. Thomas did it, but she used it in summer school, and she had, again, a trial period and was able to see the program in action. But beyond that, again, developing that rationale organically, I call it the ELA burden that we have. One of the hardest things that we have to do is gathering materials for instruction. Take for instance, in 12th grade, we haven't used a textbook in 12th grade since, and I only see a few of your faces, but I'm assuming Amber Baines is there, since her grandfather had a textbook that we used, a maroon one, and it wasn't used. I've been there 24 years. We haven't used a textbook in that time, and I think they used it before that, but we haven't used one. So we're always trying to gather our own materials. And aside from that, other grades that have textbooks, they like to make things more current. They like to update their curriculums. And sometimes the textbooks that we have, obviously they get dated, and some new materials come out, and you try to be as timely and current as possible. And so, we're always trying to find materials. It's a gathering act. And Actively Learn is pretty fantastic in the fact that they have over 19,000 sources available to us. And when I say sources, it's expansive. It's newspaper articles, short stories, poems, essays, videos, and novels. It's pretty impressive. And I know the board likes to hear these kinds of things too. When have we been spending money on these types of things? I believe when I started as chair about 7 years ago, we ordered a textbook for 11th grade. Prior to that, it was a book that went to the 10th grade, probably looking at 10, 11 years. I'm not sure precisely. And the 9th grade textbook is the oldest. And I think they've been using that one for at least 15 years. And aside from that, we obviously get paperbacks and those pieces that don't show up in the textbooks. Actively Learn has so many of those things. What also pleases me is the department does not have to bring in all new materials. There are so many of the things in there that we already teach. So the teachers can pick and choose. Is this still working for them? Do they feel strongly enough about using it that they still want to use it? Well, there's a good possibility it's in Actively Learn and they can use it, electronically. But the beauty is too that there is so much there that they're going to want to liven up their curriculums. I have my cheat notes here. Actively Learn it offers a lot too in other areas that you're not going to get in the paper sense. And of course, we're trying to do so much remotely. It's obviously the way we had to manage it from March. But moving forward, we're still, even if we're in the physical building, quite often we'll be using Chromebooks, and a lot of folks are very leery about the paper transfer and such. And this will be a benefit there. But this program also has some things that were pointed out to me. Text-to-speech mode. Quite often for students with IEPs, we're trying to gather audio tapes and supplies where, well, not tapes, let's date myself, CDs and electronic files. But we try to find them and we're not always successful. Again, it's that gathering act that is a real burden. This offers all of their materials in text-to-speech mode. It has dictionary and translation capabilities. It allows students to annotate on the page, so they'll still be able to take notes, and they're able to even print out those notes to use them for writing or to be able to bring that material out in the future. So annotation and still the ability to do that despite not having a paper copy is a great thing. It also offers discussions between students, between teacher and student, controlled discussions, which is very nice. But on the other hand, again, there's a lot to this. They offer formative assessments and they offer standards-based lessons. They offer whole units. And I've always been one who really doesn't like to go out into the e-world, out to the internet to try to find materials to teach, or in terms of lessons and such, because I always find that, you know, it doesn't necessarily work for you. You want it to be something that works with your style. But after looking at some of the materials that they offer, they have some really great lessons and some wonderful assessments. And again, they're standards based, and you can we can use what we would like to use and modify and adapt to our own style. They offer whole thematic units, which is amazing. As a matter of fact, my 12th grade teachers, myself included, have looked at an entire unit on hate. Again, very current. I saw something they emailed me today, Actively Learn emailed me something about how to adapt in a remote world, offering advice to students. And it offered questions and articles to read and just things that they can do to make their lives easier. But it's that current, it's that modern. And that's something that you don't always get with a textbook. We also, and I'll try to be brief here, it allows us to compile data on students. It offers you almost like a dashboard for each student where you're able to see their reading proficiency, how much time they're taking when they're reading at a certain level, what they're getting, what they're not getting, and it tries to measure it out so you get another level of read on that student. And that's tough to do just, you know, on your own with as many students as we have. The other thing that Melissa Power pointed out to me that's extremely important for us in this district, in any district, obviously, so many of us have found the power of the Google Classroom platform, and this is fully integratable with that platform. So it's really fantastic that they communicate well together, because it's difficult to try to get these things to speak and work together. And we've seen it with other programs we've used. They don't always jive, but with Google Classroom it works out very well. The other thing about this too is obviously we get textbooks and we get paperbacks. The school purchased all the paperbacks. We started doing that 4 years ago, and we distribute them to the students now. But those numbers are waning too. This would make it so those orders would have to be, would be decreased, most certainly. As a matter of fact, I told Mr. Brady on Monday, we really wouldn't need for much. There would be a stray order here and there, maybe for an item that a teacher wants to teach, and they might be short a few copies, but our needs would be little in regards to these text materials if we were able to initiate Actively Learn. It's a big purchase, and I thank you for considering it. and I appreciate your time and allowing me to talk about it a little bit. We do have professionals in our district who've used it. The girls in my department are amazing, and they spoke very highly of what it has done for them while they've been using it. So I haven't used it personally. I've just viewed it, and I've spoken to them about it, and they said, you got to use it. So if there are any questions that I can answer, I'd be happy to answer them, but thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mike.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, can you?
Hello?
Yep, Jodell?
Hey, can you hear
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Is there training that's involved for staff to use it, or is it that user friendly
That's part of the
that you
initial,
wouldn't have to?
the initial fee is that there would be training, a full training for our
Okay.
6 through 12 teachers, yeah.
And is there like a licensing fee that goes along with it? Like for so many years?
Stephanie could
Yes.
speak to the details on that, but yes, there is an annual fee.
Yes, there is an annual fee, as there are with many of our ELA textbooks with Wonder, Super Kids. However, the fee is not even in comparison when you look at the plethora of resources that come with this product. And to then have a 6th through 12th grade ELA department agree that this will be their curriculum, it is worth its weight in gold. Evelyn, who used to be in this chair, realizes when you now have Super Kids in grades K through 2, Wonders in grades 3 through 5, and now Actively Learns 6 through 12, that is strong programming. So we know with our textbook funds that we each year will continue to offset the price of this so that we can ensure our students have this rich text and multiple resources.
Steph, you want to mention the price on that? I know you mentioned we pay, this is out of textbook funds. And
It is.
We have those different programs you mentioned, from the Super Kids to the Wonders. Now we'll have a program all the way up through with the Actively Learn. There's an overall price, and then there's a one-time price for the training this year, correct?
Right. This year's professional development, I believe, is around $5,000 to $6,000 for that professional development. And then it is, so the total cost is $33,000. So we would have about $25,000 each year that we would use textbook monies to purchase that. And that is because pretty much the non-negotiable is having access to all of those novels, to all of those resources. That's the part that is so beautiful about this program. We could not afford all of these products that they offer in their, I guess for a lack of a better word, one-stop shop. With text and magazines and video and media and nonfiction and poetry. It's all right there.
Yeah, some of the comparables don't offer the big titles. They'll offer you, titles that are lesser known, and this offers more of the literary canon, if you will, plus so much more.
Okay, I have another question too. Can I?
Yeah, go ahead, Joy.
You had to talking about students with IEPs, and you had mentioned about translation.
Yes.
That can be involved. Would this be something that ESL students would be able to adapt to?
I believe so, because within that area of translation is obviously dealing with one language to the other. I certainly would think that that ability would be, I haven't seen it in use, but within the dictionary, within their resources, they say we have dictionary resources and translation from other languages. So I don't know how that works, but I would imagine that would be something that would benefit an ESL student.
So how it works is a student would highlight, let's say, 3 sentences, and then you tell it to speak those sentences to you. So an ESL student, an ENL student would then be able to have that read to them auditorily. As you know, it's computer voice, but they still would be able to have that text read out loud to them. Yes.
Thank you.
Mike, if you wouldn't mind, I have a question.
Okay.
So I mean, it sounds like because it marries well with Google Classroom, so that would make it ideal for remote learning.
Right.
If we get to that point, it would be an easier putt than previously, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, it does. That's one of the wonderful attributes of this program is its ability to integrate with the Google Classroom. It was one of the vendors, I'll be very honest with you, it was one of the vendors that offered its full-blown version for free. And what it was to do was entice educators to take a peek at it. And then at the end of July, it then canceled, and you could have the free version, and the free version is still there. However, there are not all of the rich resources. So our students did use this all of the emergency remote learning time, and they were extremely successful with it. And that's actually how the high school got turned on to it. Our 6th grade teachers were using it. Their children, the students in the 6th grade class, parents, the mothers were our high school ELA teachers, and they're like, whoa, 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 what's this? I could use this. And so they started to and they came to me and said, we cannot lose this. We must keep this resource. And so that's when I got to make it a little bit bigger with the non-negotiables. This will be your full curriculum. It will be used with integrity. We'll have professional development. All of those caveats went along with, oh, this just isn't a supplement. This is now your curriculum.
Stephanie, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you mentioned that this is 6th grade through 12th grade. Is this something that can ultimately be incorporated with the lower grades as well down the line? Or is this strictly the higher grades?
Well, Christy, that's a great question. If you recall earlier, we shared that we do Super Kids, that curriculum, that program, and then we use Wonders. Through our board policy, when we adopt a textbook, we have to give that textbook a 5-year chance, and we want to make sure that it's strong and we give it the time that it deserves. So at this time, because Wonders is still young to us, this really would just be a 6 through 12 program at this time.
Other questions? Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you all very much.
Glad I let you in.
Good night.
All right. I think I know we got a lot on the agenda tonight, many different things. I do want to go back up to the reopening of school report here. The board had asked for some information on kind of analyzing, evaluating how our program went back in the spring when we were forced to go to remote learning, and wanted us to gather some statistics on this. So we have done that. And let's see. Nope, not that one. Let's go there. Getting myself out of order here. There we go. So first of all, I'm just going to have Stephanie run through this background with you, and then I want to say a few things of where we are right now for reopening school, because I'm sure that there's an interest in a brief update on where we stand here a couple of weeks before school opens.
So what I'm going to share with you is an overview of the emergency remote learning. If we can go to the next slide, Friday, February 13th, Friday the 13th was our last day of normal instruction at Messina Central. So it all began with trying to get Chromebooks as quickly as possible into the hands of our students. Here we've provided you those numbers. The number of distributed Chromebooks was a little over 2,100. And below that, you will see that breakdown. Unfortunately, there was some damage. That was to be expected. We knew that would happen. But overall, we had 121 of those Chromebooks that were damaged. You can see those numbers indicated there below. The process was when it was damaged, they brought the Chromebook right to the technology department. And Mike and his team, they tried very hard to fix them. But what they would do is immediately give the person, or whether it was the parent or child, a new Chromebook, and they tagged and inventoried it. So on the right-hand side, this is the part that we are working on currently, is we do have a number of Chromebooks that were not returned. So we had at the end of our remote learning, emergency remote learning, a hand it back in time. Well, we have 90 of those that are still out there in our community. If you multiply that by the price tag, we have about $25,000 in Messina technology out in our community. We know, though, how, exactly who those students are. We do have a process in place for when we open up in the new year. We will not be giving a student who already has one out there a second one. And when they come back to school, we'll ask them to bring that in, please. So in addition, Mike Allen is working with Lori Remington at BOCES and with Slick to provide our students who do not have access to internet with that service in the upcoming year. And below it, we have provided you the numbers of students that we have surveyed that do not have internet. As you can see, the high school has 6, junior high has 5, Jefferson with 4, Madison with 5, and Nightingale with 12. So those are the families that we're targeting because we are looking to get to the 100% level. On our next slide, when we talk about the internet, Spectrum was wonderful in that they offered free access to the internet and Wi-Fi to pre-K through 12 students and families. There were some caveats to that. You couldn't have an outstanding bill, but we did partner with folks in our community. And overall, we're sharing here with you some data. At Madison, we had 12 students who didn't have internet at the beginning of emergency remote learning, but 8 of those did by the end. So we only had 4 who did not. At Nightingale, 6 families, which equaled 10 students, did not. At Jefferson, everyone had internet. And at J.W. Leary, they were aware of 5 students who did not. In regards to attendance, you asked us to report out on attendance. At Madison, midway through, they had what we believe to be 56 kids that were disengaged. That meant that they weren't logging in, they weren't handing in assignments, and at the end, as one would guess and probably surmised, that did increase to 84%. You will see that there is an increase by the end of emergency remote learning of the number of students disengaged. That's because they did not have state assessments over their heads. They did not have regencies that were going to be accountable. They also, it was shared with them about the grading. So there wasn't those hooks that kept our students engaged. At Nightingale, there was 53, Jefferson had 50, and at J.W. Leary, It started with between 80 to 85, and by the end, we were up over 100 students. Then when we go to the grading, this was something that was shared very clearly. Every principal, Mr. Brady, in all of his notes, this went out that grading was going to be different in the emergency remote learning. So in our elementaries, instead of giving grades at the end, we actually provided progress reports, and that came at the midway point and then at the end. They were mailed home to parents, grades K through 6. However, in the junior high and high school, we did weighted grading, and that was based on a grading rubric. It was decided there would be no finals, and the weight would be as such. The first quarter grade would be 35%. The second quarter grade would count 35% as well. The third quarter grade, and that was right before they left, was 20%. And the fourth quarter grade only had a 10% weight to it. So basically, if a student was doing well before they went into COVID, into emergency remote learning, they would continue to be successful on their report card. It was decided no student will be given a grade lower than 50 in the fourth quarter. And it was on a 0 to 3 grading scale, where either they received a 0, that meant they were totally disengaged. They did hand in some type of work where they received a 65. They handed in work that had effort to it, was 85. And if they handed in work and it indicated that the students were engaged, it was 100%. For our half-year courses, for example, in PE, it was pass-fail. That was then put to a percentage of 75-25. As you know, and we did share with you, all right, in our testing, there was no New York State ELA, math, science, alternative assessments, our NYSA slots, which are our ESL students, nor Regencies for June or August. Food service. So we went from offering multiple day pickups to actually once a week pickup, a 5-day meal pack. This was on Mondays from 11 till 12, and we had it at various locations to help our families in need. So in March, April, May, June, and July, you can see the total number of meals that have been distributed, the number of days that were in each of those months, and then the average number of breakfast and lunch that we gave out to those families who did come to those pickup spots. Or in some cases, we did take the food right to the homes. Summer school. At JW Leary, I put 2 years worth of data here. This past year, we had 90 students who attended summer school. The year prior, we had 139. At the high school, this year, we had 142 with 9 graduates. The year before, we had 147 with 3 graduates.
Is that flipped, Stephanie? Because we show 147 for this year.
I think I corrected that.
Okay.
And yes, I corrected it probably after what I gave you.
Okay, so that should just be flipped. So,
yes, the
okay.
18 and 19 I had backwards. I apologize for that.
Still pretty close, though.
It is. It is. Mm-hmm. Graduation. We all know how beautiful graduation was. It was unprecedented. It was different. It was, but it was beautiful. 2 gorgeous July nights, 2 different days, the 23rd and 24th. The videos are there. And we did well. Messina did well. Finally, what we learned. It is vitally important to be very clear in your message, very concise, and to continuously communicate. It's important to have routines and expectations. That's both of our students and our staff. We need to be flexible. When we first started emergency remote learning, we had one set of parameters. We learned very quickly we needed to ease back on that. And you need to be willing to change and listen to your staff and to your family and to your students. There's also the need to collaborate, to be part of the solution. All right, if it's not working, let's all work together to find out what the solution. And the biggest thing is keep it simple. Keep it simple so it's doable. What we'll be doing a little bit differently this year is also adding the element of synchronous learning and teaching. We're providing much more choice this year with face-to-face, digital, and remote. Of course, we have to have our safety measures and our protocols. With our Chromebooks, we will have much tighter accountability and responsibility and ensuring we all have access. However, we will continue our high expectations, especially in the areas of attendance and grading.
Thank you, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Nice synopsis. Any board members have questions on that look back?
So will we be returning to our normal grading system? That's the anticipation.
That's the plan. Yep.
Yes, it is.
I guess I'm wondering if there were any Chromebooks that were damaged beyond repair, or if they've all been repaired.
So there were a few. Mike, are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a handful, Pat, that were not repairable. It was actually going to cost us more in parts and manpower to put them back together. So we probably had 3 or 4 that were like that. We had a few of them that were just completely shattered. The screens were shattered, twisted or bent, and the motherboards were broken on them. So you could tell some of them were definitely intentional. You can definitely tell the difference between accidental and intentional. So.
Other questions? So let me just briefly talk about where we are with reopening. I did give a report to the board back on the 30th of our reopening plans. We've now shifted a large part of this to the buildings because that's where the work needs to be done right now. Our reopening committee continues to meet. In fact, we met today for close to 3 hours. We're continuing to refine, continuing to connect, because there's all sorts of connections here with the social distancing, the food service, the instructional model, the staffing, the scheduling. Elementary schedules are going out this week. Secondary schedules we expect to be out later next week. As you know, we've had a major change in administration here in the midst of this, with Principal Boyce leaving the high school and Alan Oliver going there. And I know Evelyn's on the call tonight, and we thank Evelyn for coming in and stepping into the junior high. Welcome back, Evelyn. So that's going to take a little bit of time for Alan to catch up here at the high school, but he's been working all week on that. I talk to him daily, and we're getting there. And then he's got his hand also in junior high, helping Evelyn to get the scheduling completed there and to get that all up and running. So we're making a lot of progress, feeling better about it pretty much each day. Of course, each time one issue gets resolved, some other question comes up of what we're going to do. Our thinking continues to evolve. As you know, we've now put in a double scanning process. We do expect the parents are going to be scanning at home. We have, before the children come to school, we are purchasing a program. It's an app called Easy Scan. It's relatively inexpensive, but it will allow us to be able to have the parent and our staff answer the questions on there, including temperature and symptoms, and if they've been out of near someone who's tested positive and all the other questions. And that information will be put right into the app, which will go to the nurse in those buildings. And they'll be able to check to see if anybody is a red flag. Then when they come into school, we have already installed the temperature scanners, which they put their face up to it, and it tells them whether they pass or fail. It takes their temperature. That also information also goes to the nurse. So we are set up for that, setting up all of our rooms now for social distancing. This next week we'll be putting in the different markers on the floors, signs on the walls, and getting ready for the teachers to come back on Tuesday the 1st through the 4th. We're getting our training. A lot of videos are being created for training videos. So we're training not only normally what we have to do, but also training on the different safety aspects such as mask wearing and social distancing and cleaning, and then giving them time to work on their different models of education that they have to provide out. Some of our staffing have been assigned specifically for remote learning. We're still working through some of those details. We have new staff orientation next Tuesday. We're going to do that remotely as well for our new staff. And we've been meeting very closely with public health to help us through this all. We had a lengthy meeting yesterday with Dr. Williams, the head of the Board of Public Health in this county, as well as Dana McGuire, who is the chair or the director of St. Lawrence County Public Health. And we met with them. They've given us a lot of resources that we're going to be posting and sending out. I won't go through all this, but let me, where am I backing up here? CP report, back up here. Nope, not that one. I know it's here somewhere.
You must have a very powerful computer for all those tabs to be open.
I know. Yeah, Mike sets me up pretty well here. I know I had that one open. Let's see, phase 2, back up. Oh, here we go. All right, so what they've set us up here for is a process so the student is screened at home by their parent, okay? And we have the app, they ask all the questions, they take the temperature. If they pass, then the student may ride the bus to school. But if they become symptomatic at school, then they would be isolated by the nurse in an isolation room. And then the nurse is going to contact this pediatric team. This is new. So the county public health is setting up a pediatric team that our nurses are going to be able to contact and have a conversation about the conditions of each of these students and come to a decision of whether the student is a person under investigation. It's not a great term, but it means under investigation for COVID. So that will be a collaboration. That is new information. We've just learned that they're going to do that, and they're going to meet with our school nurses next week, public health, throughout in order to talk to them about all of this. If it's some time of alternative diagnosis, the child has had a history of asthma, it's very clear that that's what they're doing, that's their problem, then you go all the way down, they're allowed to come back, they're allowed to stay in school. If it's identified that they are a person under investigation, then they inform the parents and that they need to contact their local physician and they need to be tested. If they are tested, if it's negative, they need a note from their doctor and a negative test result, and then they can come back to school. If they test positive, then it goes through the local health department and they're going to contact the parent. They're going to start their contact tracing. The contact tracing will start 48. They'll go back, they'll ask the student, when did your symptoms start? They'll go back 48 hours before those symptoms started and start asking questions about who they were with, where'd they go. They'll contact the school. They'll be looking at who the student was in contact with. And they'll be doing that type of tracing, and any contacts with that student would have to be quarantined for 14 days. And that contacts are someone who's with the student within 6 feet for more than 10 minutes. If they quarantine, they go through that process, they can come back to school. If the positive test will be, if they isolate for a minimum of 10 days from the start of the symptoms or test date, and the student, is fever-free, then they can come back to school. So they've put together this flow chart. We've been asking for it. It's good that they did. I think this will bring some clarity to some of the parents and others who've been asking us, what happens if a student possibly has symptoms. So that's there for you to look at.
So Pat, did they talk about if the suspect student needs to have a test? So it falls to the family to go to their doctor, and is the cost of the test going to fall on the family or back to the county? How's that going to play out? Do they know yet?
Well, yes, testing is covered by insurance, and if they don't have insurance, the county will cover it. There's no cost to the family. So, and there's no real answer to if one student tests or how many student tests, whether school will be closed. That would be a collaboration between the school and public health. It will depend a lot on the tracing and how many are going to have to quarantine based on the tracing. So that's some of we're still we have work to do, but this collaboration with every day with fellow administrators, with public health, it's coming together. Any other questions on the opening? All right, time's getting on. I'm just going to say, I don't have a document to show you on the school resource officer. I think you're all well aware that back in late July on the 21st, the village did not, well, it didn't come up for a vote. There were a couple of the trustees that were against the renewing the agreement, the annual agreement for the school resource officer. After the board had supported it, obviously we're very disappointed by that. We spent a long time and we had a great partnership with the mayor. We had a great partnership with the police department, who in fact promoted this. This was something the school, hand in hand with the local police department, had analyzed this program for an entire year before we recommended that it go forward. And after a year, based on what they're saying is liability issues. Very disappointing this week too, to see that one of our local districts and villages, they approved their SRO in the school. So whatever our options are, as I put the two different, on the agenda, I put the two different job descriptions. One option is to canvass for a school resource officer. That's an actual civil service name. There is a current list from the St. Lawrence County Civil Service. We'd have to canvass that list, and we would have to hire that person directly. And therefore, we would be responsible for arming, training, all those things. As I've said before, that would, not saying we can't do it, but I'm saying that it is something that would be not a normal process for the school district to be involved in that type of work. That's why we have this partnership. And the second one would be a special patrol officer, which is what we had This time, we called it a school resource officer, but under civil service, it was a special patrol officer. Both of them do the same job description. If you read both of them, there's really not much difference. The only difference here is with the SPO, special patrol officer, it does fall under a partnership with a police agency. I'm going to tell you, we have reached out St. Lawrence County Sheriff's Department. They're kind of reviewing this. I'm not sure what their decision will be on taking on a school resource officer, if this is the direction that we want to go in. But I just want to look at all of our options. So I don't have a recommendation for the board tonight. This is the first time we've met in regular session since the village decided not to renew the contract. So I just wanted to tell you where we are. Those are our two options. And with school starting and everything focused on that, we have spent some time in this, but it's been something we've had to kind of put aside a little bit as we get school started.
Is the state police an option to partner with?
They've kind of gotten out of that process over the years. It used to be that they would put them in the schools. I haven't, that being said, Paul, I have not contacted them. When I contacted civil service, they're the ones who said, you may want to check with the sheriff's office. They've had some discussion about the possibility of getting into schools. But I don't know if if their mind has changed on it. They seem to be willing at least to consider the idea at this point.
Yeah, Pat, I would agree with what you said earlier about being disappointed that the village didn't support this program any longer. I mean, they cite liability, but I would have hoped they would take the responsibility also of keeping our kids safe. So as far as the two options, we're not in the business of training and arming law enforcement or resource officers. So I don't think we should pursue that avenue. That's just my personal thought on it. If the sheriff's department decides to jump in and set us up the way we were previously, I think that's a great idea, but just my thought on it. I don't like the thought of us trying to train and arm someone. It's out of our wheelhouse, if you will.
Okay. All right, so more to come there. I just wanted to not leave that out. I wanted you to see where we are looking into it. We've had some inquiries, again, as I said, to county civil service and also the sheriff's department. A couple other quick ones. Social emotional learning coach. Stephanie reported at the July meeting that we need to come up with an improvement plan particularly for special education. We put a committee together, and that committee came up with some recommendations of how to make improvements. There is a grant that we will receive in order to support making these improvements. And one of the recommendations of the committee was to fund a social emotional learning coordinator that would chair our district trauma sensitivity team, work to promote a safe environment socially and emotionally at school. They would work on the different attendance committees to create strategies to get kids into school, meet with students and their parents to break down some barriers of why they're not coming to school and being successful. And this includes some of our special education students. Identify risk factors, surveys, lead PD for staff on trauma sensitive strategies, mindfulness, connect with the building leaders to review behavioral data, office referrals, and just really keep their eye on these different at-risk students above and beyond what we try to do now. Again, this would be grant funded. The board would have to approve the creation of this, and then we would post it. but it is on the, in fact, on the agenda tonight for posting this position. And again, as I said, it's a recommendation from the committee. They strongly view this as something that will support the work of improving outcomes for our students. Any questions on that?
Pat,
Yes.
now is that position, is that going to be duties added to, is this going to be an entire position? Or is this going to be duties added to someone who has a work day presently?
It is duties added to somebody presently. It isn't a full-time position. There's a $4,000 stipend through the grant that goes along with it.
Thank you.
Yep, welcome. Other questions? Board also, we're trying to bring forth some of these grants that the board had requested through our policy, that anytime we're going to enter into and receive grants, that we bring them forward. This is one that actually we started before we presented this back in July, but this is our New York State Parenting Educational Partnership Grant. This is from community schools. This was Kristen was able to garner for us. And it's a $5,000 mini grant, and we're using it to promote particularly parent cafes, getting the parents into schools in order to provide different information to them with the goal of a nurturing learning environment. And you can see some of the others here. It's all about working with our parents to get them into the school. So that's, we've already received $2,500 of that grant. We're expected to receive the rest of it in October. So I wanted you to be aware of that. And the last thing that I have is I want to thank Liberty Utilities, who donated 280 KN95. These are the big masks, the ones that are often used by nurses and others that provide the greatest protection. And you see here, Mark Salzman from Liberty Utilities did deliver those masks to us. So that's a donation we appreciate very much. And that's it for me, Pat.
Okay, next up, Nick and Mallory, I believe, are both online earlier. They can go through their reports from our business office, please.
Yep. First thing I have tonight is the tax rates. For the total tax levy we're looking at this year, we're looking at $14,831,000. We saw that the taxable assessed value for Messina was going up towards the end of last year, and we thought that was going to play well for us, and that did come through. The tax rate for Messina is actually going down by 6.5 cents per thousand, or 0.35%. So if someone didn't do anything to their house as far as improvements, that their assessment will go up, their taxes will actually go down this year. But unfortunately, there was some big swings in equalization rate in all of the outside towns that we have in our district, being Brazier, Louisville, and Norfolk, which is resulting in relatively high tax increases there. As you remember, we went out at 1.99% tax levy increase. And Messina is actually going to be going down Brazier is going up by 2.84%. Louisville is going up by 7%. And Norfolk is going up by 3.43%. And the equalization rate is controlled by the state. We don't have anything to do with that. And then for the budget status report, year to date, we've earned a whopping $9,000. And we have spent $2.65 million and have $34.4 million encumbered, with more to be encumbered as we get more POs into the system. And then the last thing is budget transfer report. You can see some expenses for the new preschool program materials, and of note is also a transfer to cover COVID related costs, which is pretty considerable at this point. Mallory?
On the June treasurer's report, the month started with 35.2 million, cash receipts of 3.6 million, cash disbursements of 9.7 million, ending June and beginning July with 29.1 million. And then in July for cash receipts, 242,000, disbursements of 2.9 million, ending July with 27.3 million. On the second quarter extra classroom report, March started with 208,000, cash receipts of 227,000, disbursements of 59,000, and ending June with 168,000. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Cash receipts of 19,000, disbursements of 59,000, ending June with 168,000. The internal claims audit report for June, 12 warrants verified for the amount of 5.6 million, 726 total claims with 3 errors. And on the July report, 11 warrants verified for the amount of 3.2 million, 215 claims with 10 errors. All errors from both months were from invoice dates being prior to the PO dates. POs were created or dated 1 to 2 days after the invoice was dated. And then on the BOCES claims report for June, 1 warrant verified for the amount of 1.9 million, 3 claims total with no errors. In the BOCES July report, one warrant in the amount of 974,000, 2 claims total with no errors. That's all I have.
Any questions for Nick or Mallory? Okay, we can move.
Sorry, Pat, I had
Yep.
to find my unmute button. I actually have a question for Nick on the budget status report on page 5 and on 2 occasions on page 7. There are expenditures that I believe are for Trinity Catholic School, textbooks, software, and library books. I guess I was just a little surprised that the district kicks in monies for Trinity in that particular area.
Yeah, so we're actually required to cover the education of all the students within our district bounds. We have to pay them a per student rate in those categories for their enrollment. Actually, for the CARES Act, which is the federal funds that are coming through this year, we have to pay, I believe it's 33,000 out of our general fund budget, of which we had flat aid. So our foundation aid is actually going down this year because under those terms, we have to pay Trinity.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Okay, we'll move on to recommended actions. First item is approval of the SIG grant.
Pat, I apologize for interrupting you. I just want to verify Amber is still not on, correct?
And we don't see Kevin either. You'll have to turn the light on.
You'll hear the yay or you'll hear the nay.
Okay.
I thought this would be easier, but please bear with me.
So did we lose Amber, we think?
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe she's in one of the tab of Pat's computer. So many tabs there. No, it's not there.
I don't see her still on.
Well, we'll move on. If we have an issue,
Correct.
we'll deal with it. Okay, so approval of the SIG grant, we'll throw that up again. May I have a motion for that, please?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, any discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Kevin?
I'm a nay.
Thanks, Kevin. Approval of the NYS PEP grant. Have a motion? A second?
Second.
All those in favor?
I'm a yay.
Thank you.
Approval of the International Baccalaureate textbook.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Yay.
Was that a yay or a nay?
Yay. Yes.
Thank you.
Approval for the ELA curriculum grades 6 through 12.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Approval of the donation of the mask.
So
So
moved.
move.
Second.
Okay. Again, thank you to Liberty Utilities and all those in favor. Thank you.
Yes.
Approval of the first reading for policy 7310, student code of conduct and discipline.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor, please.
Yes.
Thank you. New York State Standard Workday Resolution.
So moved.
Elected appointed official, sorry.
So moved.
All those in
Second.
favor? Oop. Any discussion? All those in favor, sorry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Lauren,
Sorry.
it's okay.
Approval of the tax rates for 2020-21.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Any discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Yes.
Approval of the budget status report.
So move.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. Approval of the budget transfer report.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, questions? All those in favor then?
Yes.
Thank you. Approve treasurer's report for extra classroom activities.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, I'll do the treasurer's report for both months. So approval of the treasurer's report for both June and July.
So move.
Any questions?
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. Approvals of internal claims audit report general for June and July, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. Approval for the internal claims audit report for BOCES, June and July, please.
So moved. Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Approval of the CSE, CPSE report.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. And I'll turn over personnel actions for Mr. Brady, please.
Okay, I recommend the approval of items 1 through 18 on the personnel action items list.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I have a sick leave allowance for one of our new hires, a high school science teacher.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, that moves us on to new business. Any board members have an item they want to bring up to further discussion at a later date?
Just a question, clarification about tomorrow, stopping by to sign the tax warrant. You need to do that, right, Angela?
Yes, please. Thank you very much.
And then when are you there?
I'm there from 7:30 to 3. I can be longer if I need to make additional accommodations for someone. I didn't hear back from Christy or Joe Dow. Did you guys get my email?
I did. I responded. Maybe I didn't send it. I'll be there at 7:45 in the morning.
Thank you so much.
Not a problem.
I'll be there 8:45-ish.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Okay. I don't know if we can really have communications from the public or press. They can send in text or emails, correct?
Yes.
Other than that, may I have a motion to adjourn then, please?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? All right. Thanks for everyone, especially you guys from far off.
So long.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Angela, I'll be sending this right along.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Paul.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night. Look at it.
Pat, before you go, can you transfer the host back to me?
Yeah, I didn't go off because I wondered, because
Yep. I'm recording it, so it should still go either way, but I just wanted to make sure.
it just says more here. And when I go more, it says add profile picture. It's not really letting me change oh, maybe it's down at the bottom. Under more, maybe? Breakout room, stop live stream, close record, chat.
Here, I got it. Hang on, reclaim host. Gotcha.
Okay, you got it?
Yep, we're good.
All right, I'm leaving.
All right.
All right. See ya.